These are sandals. They are 3,300 years old. They belonged to King Tutankhamun, one of the most famous pharaohs in the history of ancient Egypt. And on the insole, the part that goes under your feet, Egyptian craftsmen painted images of the king's enemies, bound, captured, and defeated. So that every single step Tutankhamun took, he was literally walking on their faces. Before we get to the enemies on the insoles, a quick introduction to the man himself. Tutankhamun, often called King Tut, was a pharaoh of ancient Egypt's 18th dynasty, part of what historians call the New Kingdom period. He came to the throne around 1332 BC, when he was approximately 9 or 10 years old. He ruled for roughly 10 years, dying around 1323 BC at approximately 18 or 19 years of age. The cause of his death has been debated for decades: malaria, a broken leg, genetic complications from inbreeding. But no definitive answer has ever been confirmed. During his short reign, Tut reversed many religious reforms introduced by his predecessor Akhenaten, restoring Egypt's traditional polytheistic religion and the worship of its gods, especially Amun. He was a restoration pharaoh, a healer of Egypt's brief religious crisis. On November 4th, 1922, British archaeologist Howard Carter and his excavation team made one of the most extraordinary discoveries in the history of archaeology. Working in the Valley of the Kings near ancient Thebes, modern Luxor, they found a previously unknown royal tomb cut into the rock. When Carter finally peered inside, his patron, Lord Carnarvon, asked whether he could see anything. Carter famously replied, "Yes, wonderful things." The tomb was extraordinarily intact. It contained over 5,000 individual artifacts: furniture, chariots, weapons, jewelry, statues, food offerings, and footwear. Lots of footwear. Let's look at the sandals properly. According to Howard Carter's original object card, it's still held at Oxford University, the sandals measure 11.2 by 3.6 inches or 28.4 by 9.2 centimeters. That makes them roughly a US men's size 11.5 or EU size 45. The sandals were made of wood as the base, then covered with a veneer of bark. Over that, craftsmen applied green leather and pieces of gold foil, all layered on top of a base of white paint. Luxury objects made to signal wealth, power, and divine status. Carter found them lying underneath a basket in the tomb. However, it wasn't clear if that was their original placement. Many objects had been disturbed, either rearranged by priests or partially looted in antiquity before the tomb was resealed. Now for the most extraordinary part. Each sandal has depictions of two people bound with lotus and papyrus in the arch area. Each sandal also has 8 bow weapons, 4 near the toes, 4 at the heel. And the strap holding the sandal to the foot is shaped in the form of a bow. Together, these elements make up a specific symbol in ancient Egyptian culture: the 9 bows. The 9 bows was the ancient Egyptian collective term for all of Egypt's enemies, foreign peoples and hostile forces that threatened the stability and divine order of the Egyptian state. Nubian peoples, Libyan tribes, Syrian and Canaanite forces, the sea peoples. Whoever threatened Egypt was included in the 9 bows. And on King Tut's sandals, their representatives were painted directly on the part of the shoe that his foot pressed down on. With every step, the pharaoh crushed his enemies, literally, symbolically, and magically. This wasn't just decoration. In ancient Egyptian belief, images had real power. When you depicted something, you could activate it. When a pharaoh was shown crushing his enemies in art, on monuments, on objects, on temple walls, it wasn't just propaganda. It was believed to make that reality true, in the physical world and the spiritual world simultaneously. The Egyptian Museum in Cairo, where the sandals are displayed today, has an information card that explains this directly. It notes that the bound captives on the insoles refer to King Tut's power, and that the 9 bows are situated so that the king's feet step on them, reifying the trampling of Egypt's enemies by the monarch. Every time King Tut put on these sandals and walked to the throne room, to a ceremony, to a temple, he was performing a continuous act of ritual domination. His enemies were eternally beneath his feet. The sandal itself was the spell. The enemy insole sandals were remarkable. but they were just one pair among many. King Tut's tomb contained dozens of pairs of footwear, different sandals for different purposes: simple linen sandals, highly decorated ceremonial pairs, wooden sandals, gold covered sandals, plant fiber sandals. The sheer quantity of footwear suggests that different sandals served different ceremonial functions in the afterlife, just as they did in life. A pharaoh's appearance, including what was on his feet, was carefully controlled symbolism from head to toe. When Howard Carter finally unwrapped Tutankhamun's mummy in 1925, he found something extraordinary on the pharaoh's actual feet: gleaming gold sandals. And on each toe, gold toe covers had been placed, fitted individually. The boy king was buried with literal gold on his feet. Whether King Tut ever actually wore the enemy insole sandals during his life, we don't know for certain. They may have been made specifically for the afterlife or worn in life and placed in the tomb afterward. The sandals cannot tell us which. Today, the enemy insole sandals are on display at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. They have survived 3,300 years. The wood, the bark, the green leather, the gold foil, and the painted enemies on the insoles, all still visible. The enemies that Egyptian craftsmen painted on those insoles 3,300 years ago, the Nubians, the Libyans, the various peoples of the Nine Bows, those civilizations are long gone. The political conflicts they represented are forgotten dust, but the sandals remain. King Tut is still technically walking on his enemies. He has never stopped. That's this episode of Toon of Time. A pair of sandals. Some painted enemies, 3,000 years of the world's pettiest and most powerful footwear. Subscribe, drop a comment, and let me know what is the most extraordinary King Tut artifact you've ever seen. See you next time.